The autism is a spectrum disorder with presents with behavioral, communication, and social challenges. So you will see those three aspects of a child being either unique or different or delayed. Then what is the cause? As scientists document us today, there is no known cause of autism. What we have are risk factors. What is tends to associate more with autism? One, the family history, genetic factors. When you find an autistic child and you take a proper history, you will find there is a family linkage. Maybe in that family there was someone with a condition or something related to that. Then there is societal and environmental factors. For example, dietary factors. We have seen some diet what we call aggravates the behaviors of autism. Then we have parental age. I've seen documentation, and it is there documented that the more advanced the parent is, the more likely you are likely to have a child with autism. So those are some of the risk factors, but there is no single known cause of autism. Yes. Yeah.
What are some of the symptoms?
So the symptoms vary from child to child, but basically in terms of communication, you will find when the communication is supposed to develop, and as it develops as a milestone, you will see gaps, like the child is not able to have a social smile, not able to identify the people around them, and they are avoiding, for example, contact, or sometimes they have too much focus on something. So in terms of communication, you will see there is a gap compared to the peers of that age. Then in terms of social interactions, you will find this child probably, now that I say this as spectrum, there are those who go seek more sensory input, there are those who avoid sensory stimuli, or there are those who need more and more stimuli. So you will find a child avoiding interacting with others, or when interacting with others is very aggressive, hostile, and very hyperactive. So you will see those are some of the red flags. And in terms of behavior, not taking instructions, being unique from the other children, and when it reaches some level, the diagnostic age for autism, the ideal diagnostic age is 18 months, that's 1.5 years. So this is where you start clearly seeing this child is unique in those three aspects I've said. So between 18 months and 30 months, you are able to get the exact diagnosis of the autism, and sometimes they are done very advanced studies to come and assess whether is this child able to hear, is he able to see, is he able to have all his sensory system functioning. So that is basically what is done in the diagnosis. Yes.
In terms of the spectrum in relation to autism, what is a spectrum? What is the functionality that you were talking about?
As I said, autism being a spectrum, they have a wide range of presentations, which makes it like the reason why we find people are saying my child is not autistic like the other one, because the levels of behavior and presentation are not the same. So the spectrum being because they cut across those symptoms, but not at the same magnitude. So when we talk of level 1 now, the World Health Organization has developed a tool, and we have many tools we use. Even some are self-rating scales. We give them to feel, does your child has these behaviors? So we have such tools. But the WHO has developed an international classification of functioning. So we have now the latest classification into 3 levels. Level 1 being they need minimal support. For example, if it's in academic, even in social life, or in anything they are doing, they really need minimal support. Level 2, where they come now, they need substantial support. And the level 3 is the extreme, where they need very substantial support. So the reason why you find there is a lot of myths and misunderstanding that my child is not autistic while mine is because of that categorization in terms of the levels and the support needed. Yes.
Dr. Why is it that misdiagnosis is a big factor to many parents who have kids with autism? Before they actually realize that this is the right diagnosis, they say they have moved from one hospital to another. Why is it a problem?
One thing is about it because anything, even science is evolving, and so it is in disability world. For example, even now in this country, we have now the first very few developmental pediatrician. We have had general pediatrician before, and now we have pediatric neurologists. And we have had general neurologists before. So that tells you there is evolving. Even the therapist, We have now therapists who have specialized in speech and language, others in development, others in areas. So the specialization, which has really helped us now to have very accurate and specific diagnosis. However, just like I can tell you, disability is very hard to accept. You know, some parents come, for example, to me. They have come from another facility. They have come to Karen Hospital. When they come, they have a lot of information which they want to validate. So sometimes they don't want to confirm to you that I was told by this doctor that my child is this and this. They want you to do your independent study and give them the feedback they had to validate. So why they move from facility to facility?
So this is
disability,
not about lack of expertise.
No, we have experts. We have experts. If we want to have even an hearing test, we have experts. If it's a functional test, we have experts. But acknowledging it and accepting it, our society and that's why the theme this year it is not autism awareness, it is autism acceptance. As a parent, can you accept that your child is autistic? As a community, as a society, as an institution, even where you are married, for example, you might be knowing what it is, but can they accept you? So the reason why they move from one doctor to another, from one facility to another, most likely it's about the acceptance. And disability acceptance is in phases from denial until you reach the level of yes, I agree. And that is why we use it even in terms of intervention. Because we are focusing on early intervention. Had we started early intervention, by the time we are moving from one facility to another, it takes months, for example. Instead of coming at 18 months, maybe you'll accept at 5 years. So the skills which we could have started developing, we lose a lot of part of that time. And the brain functions, we have something called plasticity of the brain. The younger the brain, the more likely it is to get the skills, retrained or retrained for that matter. So the time lost in between acceptance phase is also an indicator of the prognosis. So the child comes at 8 years, they want to be trained, the basic things we could have trained at 3 years. For example, when we are talking of concentration, ability to sit down, focus, take instruction, those are some of the milestones which we train. For example, here at the Karen Hospital, we have a facility where we identify these children at birth. You are supposed to, we do what we call neonatal screening. We identify these children and we see, no, it's an initiative of government, but not all facilities have taken that. So neonatal screening, you are able to identify at birth, this child has got some sensory needs. So we put them what we call early intervention and monitoring trend. So by 6 months, we are able to see how is the milestone going on and we monitor that. If we did that, that is in line now with the government disability mainstreaming strategy. So we could get a lot of outcome out of it.
Is this done with the parents' consent?
Yes, at the Karen Hospital is that at birth we screen every child of all disabilities, and we do it with the parent consent because we inform them even when they're coming to clinics that part of our package what we will offer you at birth, because most of the health facilities and health practitioners are blamed by parents. They never told me my child has a problem. They never told. No parent refuses to pay an extra 2,000 or 3,000 to get to the child monitored for disability. And the government has circulated a strategy, 2018-2023, disability mainstreaming strategy. If it is rolled out in every facility in this country, we are able to get early diagnosis, early intervention, and early monitoring. So which is where the disconnect comes from. Yes.
You are watching TV47.
I know autism management, occupational therapy is part of autism management. So could you tell us a little bit about what is occupational therapy, how is it done, what are the different types or aspects of, yes?
Occupational therapy is the gold treatment of autism. The intervention is to enable the child function. Remember I told you about function and independence. So these children have got, for example, the behavior, the hyperactivity, the ability to avoid sensory stimuli. So we have gadgets and we have equipment and intervention methodologies we use. For example, vestibular stimulation. You'll find these children who avoid movement or they are craving much for movement, so they can't sit still. So we have a vestibular stimulation treatment which is called sensory integration. So this we look at the child with the normal 5 senses, but we have 2 more senses which are very unique with autism: the proprioception and the vestibular. Vestibular is to do with balance and equilibrium, and the proprioceptive is about the pressure on joints and ability to walk. So when you have, for example, a trampoline is an equipment used to do vestibular proprioceptive stimulation, and then we do sensory stimulation, and then a lot of functional. For example, when you see most of the schools, these children, the ability to sit down, to have that eye contact, eye-hand coordination, even the fine motor skills, concentration to hold even a pen, handwriting. So those are the interventions which are done in occupational therapy. Together with speech and language. Speech and language, you cannot develop speech if you cannot sit down and maybe have a ability to match objects and have that eye contact and imitate. So those are the interventions, because there is no medication you can give to an autistic child. We finish it. What we do is sensory integration training, which requires a lot of repetition. I can give you an evidence that I have seen those who start early and do it consistently. I have many success stories. I told you I'm a therapist of 12 years of practice, and mostly I've seen this autism being the major one which have got very good outcomes.
And for the benefit of our viewers, you
yes,
could give us one success story or two, of course not mentioning names, but just telling us what milestone, how were they able to move from one place to the other in terms of
yes, function. We do have, as I told you, it's a spectrum. I have children who have discharged at the age of 7, 3 or 4 of them recently. They are able to now, we do assessment at the initial level. We do recommendation for school placement, for example. If this child is able to go to school, sit still in class, is able to write normally like the others, is able to play with the others, because play is the major occupation of that child and the schooling, then we have nothing to do with the child here. Is able to communicate. Some of them attain fully language abilities, but where I get a disconnect is most parents who will call to our clinic even to inquire, they're talking about my child is not able to talk. They're not looking at the other functions or other abilities. So of course, even that communication might not be 100%, but so long as it's independent. I need to go to the toilet, is able to communicate. I need to go to school, I need to avoid this. Don't look at it like so long as I communicate fluently like any other person, because we have fluency disorders, a number of categories. So ours, we look at it in terms of milestone. If you are able to achieve this and you are independent, we discharge them, and I have seen quite a good number, but they depend on the intervention, the number of sessions, the time of intervention, and the home program and the support system, because even parents and the society plays a very important role. It's not a one-man show, because for example, there is a lot of myths about diet, but I can tell you it has been researched and documented that there is some diet which aggravate these behaviors. So it's the parent who diet which has got a lot of gluten and casein products, like wheat products, dairy products. So those ones are monitored at home, but we conjoin our intervention with the caregivers.
So are there kids that you actually discharge and they're fully functioning after that? They don't need any kind of intervention?
Yes, we are. But as I saw it, it's as levels of functioning. Those who are level 1, level 2, or if there is early intervention and a good intervention plan, we discharge them. Yes.
Talk to me about data, Daktari. Are we lacking in data here in Kenya?
I can tell you, just like any other data, medical data is very difficult to have accurate, because it's continuous. Even today, there is a child who has been born who is autistic. for example. But we have Kenya Health Demographic Survey, which does a lot of data correction. But the
new one was just
released 2022, for example. 2022 talks about disabilities. We also have the National Census Report, which we as experts disputed, because when they were collecting that data, the questions they were asking, they were looking at physical disability, and they were excluding the ones below 5 years. So the data will not be accurate. I can tell you, without avoidance of doubt, the autism, for example, is on the rise. The data can be, why is the rise? Is it because there is early intervention and early diagnosis? Is it because now there is advanced acceptance level? But the number is on the rise, and it is scientifically being researched. The number is also a rise in terms of gender. I can tell you there are more boys with autism than girls. Those are some of the things the government should invest in research we come up with why boys, why is the rise. Those ones we don't have any data right now, but I can tell you from all the key in planning and key in intervention. And then the data also is you see now these are private facilities. We keep our data very fast. In some other facilities, the data handling is not as efficient as it were. So that is where we're lacking. But we have new interventions coming in. Like I told you, the disability mainstreaming policy. We have a bill which was passed 2 weeks ago. Learners with disability is talking about autism. There is another bill, the Disability Act of Kenya. So we have at least the government trying to do something, but not enough. Yes.
From where you sit, I know you've mentioned about the rise. From where you sit, why do you think there's a rise?
The rise, to me, like now, Karen Hospital, I can give you a clear indicator. Parents around here probably, they are informed. They come early for screening, and they come early for diagnosis. That is one factor which is contributed to the rise. Number two, the rise, I cannot, since COVID, post-COVID, I saw a number of the rise. Remember during the COVID, the containment measures, one of it was no socialization, no going to schools, no going to church. The children were enclosed. And when a child is enclosed, everything is on the screen. The screen exposure puts you in an imaginary world. If you are, for example, having some predisposal of being autistic and you have these mild features, we are enhancing them. So post-COVID, I can tell you the number was higher. Even those who are autistic, the levels went, in terms of the behaviors, went beyond manageable because they were enclosed, they're just in the house, no social, no exposure. So the rise could be attributed to a number of factors. Maybe our lifestyle also, because I've seen many young parents now, many young parents with such cases. So I told you parental age is a factor, but I'm seeing very many young parents. Probably it's the lifestyle and what they go through. Yes.
Why the increase in boys?
The increase in boys, as I told you, science is evolving. That one we are still talking about it, because one of the study I'm doing here and the current is for the retrospective study, characteristic of autistic children, the parents, where they have been brought up, where was they birth, where was the place of birth and the mode of birth. So that is one of the factors I'm looking at it. Is it more in boys than this? So we still lack in the health research, which is a key factor in the health information and research statistics.
You've talked about intervention in kids. What about caregivers?
Very good. The caregivers, as I handle an autistic child, I look at them from a three-dimensional. What is my role? What is the role of the child and the family and the society? I can tell you the caregivers play a very important role. But more often than not, they are forgotten. The mothers, the parents, but mostly it's the mothers. For obvious reason, some fathers have taken off. So 90% are mothers who bring the children here. And then number two, they already are having so much. So we do what we call psychological and psychosocial support. We usually have a training once in a month we bring them together to have a support group. They share experiences, they share challenges, and they share options. And these parents, even you find they have a support group, social media, they have a WhatsApp group, they share experiences. Where do you take your child for shaving? Where do you take them for playing out? That way plays a very important role, so that they find. Remember, we have said environment can be the facilitator of that disability. Our environment is the structures around us. So the people who discriminate these parents are not the ordinary people. It's all of us. So what happens when they are in a group? They are able to have their activities. They have a fun day. They reach together. They share a lot of experiences. So there is a support group for parents, and we also empower these parents through how to diet, what are you supposed to do, how to intervene at home, where to refer to, because sometimes this parent might move here, you go to holiday to Mombasa. So I'm able to link you up to the group in Mombasa or in Kakamega, so that there is continuity, because this therapy is supposed to be a continuous intervention. So there is a program for parents, and it should be there. It is the key, because the parents play a role. Who brings a child to the hospital is the parent. Who going to implement the home program is the parent. Where do they, even sharing like the insurance, most of the insurance were not covering these conditions. Nowadays, because of the advocacy and the championing done by parents organization, they are able to influence somehow. Not all of them still are taking, but some of them are taking. But I can tell you, if you are not in an organization, you walk to an insurance, you are alone, you have an autistic child, they will not cover. They come here, we want to intervene, but the ability to pay for that is still a challenge. They also have a lot of unemployment among us, these parents. Some of them who come from informal settlements, they need to come together to have like income generating activities, because who will employ you? You come 3 days to hospital. Now they will not give you a job, and you need that job. So parents also need to be brought together to have like income generating incentives. This is what is happening in developed countries. Probably this is where we have delayed in the country. Yes.
As we wind up, how affordable is treatment, autism treatment? I know you talked about occupational therapy being the treatment, and then finally, what I know the government is doing. There are things that have been done by the government so far, but what can they do more?
Let me start with the affordability. You know, affordability is very relative, depending on what we are looking about. But an average occupational therapy session is 2,500 to 3,500. That is the rate which has been accepted by the government, and that is the rate being offered most of the facilities. But coming to the measures the government has put in place, but when I'm saying an average, remember that is one session. If you are coming 3 sessions a week, and we have said it is stretched over the land, it is not affordable. That's why most of the developed countries, when you have such a child, you are given some waiver or some incentives, which are not happening here. Although I have some parents here who are working maybe in the UK, you can see the kind of support they get. Coming down to the measures the government has put, the government has tried, for example, coming with the bills and all that. But the intervention, have you seen transition from primary? You can see in a primary school, you can see some level of an integrated classroom or some level. When you go to the high school, you find there are few. When you go to university, you might not even get a university with the facilities to accommodate this. So that tells you, even if they advertise position, they say, we encourage persons with disability to apply. How do you expect them to apply when they didn't train? So they are not in the mainstream competition. So there is still a gap, a very big gap. Maybe the challenge is because our disability is looked at it from one angle. Disability needs to be looked at from a social model angle, where it is beyond health. Yeah, they're looking at it in the health. This person is able to walk, that is all. We need to look at the education, the finance, the infrastructure, and all those things, so that as a community, we are looking at a holistic person. So that is where the government has not done much. As much as they have these government bodies, the disability bodies like National Council, which is not known by many parents, even getting a disability registration card, somehow it was very difficult up to the other day. when they develop that function. So you'll find many people who have no that card. So that needs to be upscaled for it to work. Also the training. You had parents saying occupational therapy is not available for them. Yes, it is not available because we are at most 2,000 in the country against 50 million. And among these 2,000, others have been poached to other countries. We are the ones who are supporting Uganda, Botswana and Saudi Arabia and all that. Among these 2,000, then the training maybe needs to be given incentive so that we have many institutions training, even specialization. Even up to the other day, we started training speech and therapy at a master's level. Who is going to master if you have not trained a diploma person or a basic degree level? So the government still has a lot to do.